Hey everybody, I want to share a little project I had in mind. And what I wanted to do is I have that little compressor there, and I have a 4-horse compressor that I wanted to be able to run off this Bouge RV 3000 watt inverter. Now this battery has 120 amp BMS in it, and the one back there has 100 amp BMS, so neither one could handle the surge voltage nor pull the capacity that was needed to run this inverter. They would both kick off because of the BMS. So I said, well, let me tear down this little cheap battery I got. It's not really cheap, but you know, it's not an eco-worthy or a name brand, more popular brand. But this battery had a bad temperature sensor on the BMS that wouldn't allow it to charge. So I tore it down, diagnosed the problem, ordered a temperature sensor, and it's going to take about a week to get here. And so while I'm waiting on that, I said, well, let me see if I connect this battery with this cable here directly to the battery, bypassing the BMS, and plug it directly into the inverter, if it would run it. Well, it did. So then I tried both compressors, and it would, not at the same time, but both compressors would start up, the smaller one there and then the 4-horse. Both of them are 110. This inverter has a 20 amp outlet here and then two 15s. So it's got, it's kind of set up to handle some high wattage. Alright, so I figured, well, if that little battery there would run it, the inverter, and run the welder, and run the compressor and everything, then surely this eco-worthy would. Now, there was nothing wrong with this battery. I hadn't had it in about a week or so. But as you can see there, I've got eco-worthy's big 314 amp hour battery. And I got those from my boats. And I got one in my pontoon, and that one there actually going in my bass boat. But anyhow, I said, well, let me figure out if this will run it without any issue. Now, this inverter specs asked for 2-aught cable. And I didn't really want to try to maneuver them big cables in here. So I got 2-gauge cable, but with the short run they have to make, and this isn't going to be putting out 3,000 watts for a steady hour. It's just going to be working surges with the compressor, and as well as the welder. You weld, and you got a cool down period and weld and whatever. So I said, well, let me do that and see if it'll run it. So I built me up this test lead, put it on the battery, directly on the battery, and it did. It ran the inverter 100%, no issues whatsoever. Start both compressors, again, not at the same time, and run the welder. I put a 3,000 watt load on it using 2 heat guns. It ran them for 15 minutes. I took my thermal camera and checked all the connections, the batteries and everything. Everything was running cool, looking good. Nothing was getting hot. And I was like, well, this is a done deal, so I want to make it look good, make it permanent. So the leads that I made up, I'd already had these connectors. And then I had bought 2 of these that have the little enclosure on them. So I was like, well, I can cut it out, metal case. I'll cut it out, mount that in there, mount that to that. And then it'll be all cool and slick looking. And then the lid still fits like a glove. So I'll show you one more time. There's the battery negative, and it shares the negative with the 2 negative leads that they got running into the BMS, and it shares the 1 lead they got going through the BMS, or actually don't go through the BMS, but the 1 lead that goes to the positive pole right here. So these 2 still run through the BMS, so they're regulated at 120 amp. And on the app, it can show you how many amps are being drawn and all that kind of stuff. Now, the drawback with doing this, you do not have the ability to see the amps that are going through the battery via their app. But for some reason, the app that works for that battery actually will connect to this one. And it shows you the temperature and everything. Now this is eco-worthy and this is eco-worthy, but for some reason that app won't work with this battery. So I'm guessing they're using a more standard BMS than these batteries are. These must be using a proprietary BMS. But this battery does show up on the app, and I can regulate the battery temperature, but that's all. Nothing's going through the BMS, so nothing's going through a shunt or anything, so you can't read the amperage or anything. However, on this inverter, you can. Let's see. It's got the voltage, how much AC voltage you got, the hertz, and the wattage being drawn. So between that and the app, I can monitor the temperature of this battery, and I can monitor the wattage it would pull. But I got it plugged in there, as you can see. I hooked a little welder to it, turned it wide open. That's a 135 amp welder. And I held it there. I wasn't even wearing my helmet, that's why it looked so cruddy. I was actually monitoring the battery temperature and the wattage. But I held the welder there for 15 minutes straight and let it burn wide open at 135 amps. Put the thermal camera on all this again, and it only heated up 5 degrees. So I think that's going to be good to go. Now I've got all kind of accessories that use these plugs in my boat. I have one in there so I can plug the inverter in the front of there. The boat actually has a dedicated Bouge RV 2000 watt generator in it and 600 watt solar on the pontoon boat. But if I needed some more, boost, I can actually plug this battery into the connector like this on the boat and be able to assist the battery in the boat. Or I can run the inverter on it if I need to, but like I said, it has an inverter. For anything I need to do, I've got the charger. I've got a 100 amp AC charger to charge these batteries. I can plug it directly into here, or plug it in the connector in the boat to charge the boat up, which that was its main purpose. If for some reason I'm out on the lake for a few days and the battery runs down, I can actually either take my generator and run the 100 amp charger and charge the boat battery up, or I can if I can get my truck close enough, I can run it off my truck's inverter and charge the boat back up. So that was just a fail safe in case I was out there and lost sunlight and the battery went dead. So far, I had originally bought 5 of these batteries, 3 for the pontoon and 2 for the bass boat. And so the 3 that I had in the pontoon, I took them out because, like I said, the BMS on this one quit working because the temperature sensor was reading a false reading and wouldn't allow the battery to charge. It said the battery was 165 degrees and BMS was shutting the battery off. So when I took those 3 out, with the 3 of them I had 300 amp hours. Well, this one battery has 314 amp hours. So this one battery took the place of all 3 of them in the pontoon. And I'll do a video on the pontoon to show you how it's set up. But hadn't did videos in a while because I had other things going on. But that's 2 gauge cable there as well. And the fun thing is when I was running them off this little rinky-dink one, I was using the 4 gauge cable on the inverter and coming from the battery, and it would still run everything. But I was pretty amazed that that battery there would do that, because like I said, it's not a familiar brand. It was just some I got on sale, and they were pretty cheap. I think I got them on sale for like $160 a piece, but they are smart batteries, smart BMS and everything. Alright folks, I don't know what else to show you or say. I'm going to put this thing back together. I was waiting on doing this video to put the lid back on. If y'all want a more in-depth description on what I did, let me know. But for now, I think I've covered all the key points. And that is, if you bypass the BMS, the little 120 amp BMS, I don't know why they had a BMS that's so low, because obviously these batteries can put out way more than 120 amps safely, because they never heated up with probably 200 and something amps going through it. Probably, yeah, I'd say about 200 amps with this everything pulling 3,000 watts, about 225 or something like that. But anyhow, you get the gist of it. There's the specs on the batteries if anybody wants to know. But yeah, these eco-worthy batteries, man, I'm really liking them things. And I watched a few videos of people doing tear downs of this one here. Now I'm not tearing it down because it's got a glued lid on it. This lid was glued and has these snaps on it. I had to take my Dremel tool and cut it out. And I'll have to glue it back together when I get the BMS temperature probe. But there you go, man. If y'all need a lot of power, portable, and don't want to run the generator and hear the motor screaming at you, because my quiet generators I have, they will not run this. They're only 1500 watt, and they're not going to run this thing here at full capacity. And then my big generator weighs about 200 pounds. Some big old Troy builts with the remote monitoring system on it, and electric start and all, so it's pretty darn heavy. It's about 220 pounds. But I wanted something that was quiet, that I ain't got to sit here and listen to the engine run, because that, for some reason, just drives me nuts. And I also wanted something that had plenty of power, and Bouge RV delivers. I've got their solar panels. Matter of fact, that's the only panels I buy now. I sold all the panels I had, and on my toy hauler, I got 1200 watts of Bouge RV solar going into a what's it called? Daggone. It's power stations, solar generator, whatever you want to call it. But it name brand one EcoFlow. Yeah, okay, EcoWorthy had me where I kept wanting to think that instead of EcoFlow. But I got an EcoFlow Delta Pro in my toy hauler with an extra battery on it, and the 1200 watts of solar charges it up. And then on my pontoon, as I already stated, I got 600 watts of Bouge RV panels on it, which run through a Bouge RV solar controller, and it charges up the one of these in it, which is 314 amp hours. So far it's been more than enough. I've never run it down below 50%, and I've been out there for 3 or 4 days. Usually sun comes up in the morning, it's charged back up by about 1 or 2 o'clock, and that's with running spot lock on the trolling motor and miscellaneous other things. I got a Bouge RV refrigerator in there, it runs that. Trolling motor, I got a ceiling fan in my boat, it runs that, runs all the lights. And I've got a 1800 watt grill on the boat, and it'll run that. That's the only thing that really draws the battery down any at all. If I cook and it takes 30 minutes or so, I'll lose about 15-20% of the battery. But there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you need more information, just hit me up. And like and subscribe. The channel's been dead for a couple years now as I was going through some health issues, but we're going to be back now. Appreciate you watching.